Welcome back to Rugby Obsession, the podcast for everyone who, is obsessed with rugby.
That's us.
If you love these deep dives into Springbok history,
Make sure.
make sure you hit that subscribe button
So you don't?
so you don't miss a single scrum. Today, we're asking what if about some Springbok careers.
The ones that
Yeah, the ones that maybe, didn't quite hit those heights.
we all expected. Yeah.
And for this one, we're focusing on a real powerhouse of a flanker, Jaco Kriel.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because it makes you think about how we define success in rugby.
Yeah.
We tend to focus on those big wins, those trophies.
Right.
But sometimes the most interesting stories are the ones that, they went a little differently.
Okay, so let's unpack this a bit.
Yeah.
Jaco Kriel, his journey started with a bang, didn't it? 3 Super Rugby finals in a row with the Lions from 2016 to 2018.
That's a statement, for sure.
It really is.
He was just phenomenal on the field.
Yeah.
So much power.
And agility.
Yeah, this surprising agility. He always seemed to pop up in exactly the right place at the right time, disrupting attacks, creating chances for his team.
So for our listeners who might not be, super familiar with all the ins and outs of the different positions,
Yeah.
what makes a flanker like Kriel so important, so vital to a team's success?
Well, think of the flankers as the dynamos in the forward pack.
Okay.
They're covering the most ground, constantly tackling, fighting for the ball, and then linking up with those backs to keep the attack moving.
Right.
And Kriel, he had this unique blend of just raw power and almost like a finesse to his play. Made him a nightmare for opponents.
Yeah, and that's what got everyone talking about his potential in the green and gold array.
Absolutely. His performances for the Lions, you couldn't ignore them. He got his first Springbok cap in 2016.
Yeah.
And then was part of that squad that just, demolished France
Yeah.
in the 2017 mid-year series.
It felt like he was just about to become a permanent fixture in that Springbok lineup.
It really did.
But then, as we know, things took a bit of a turn. And before we go any further with that,
Yeah.
if you're enjoying this deep dive, make sure you hit that subscribe button for Rugby Obsession for more great rugby analysis. Now, back to Jaco Kriel. This is where it gets, a little tricky. That serious shoulder injury in 2017 put him out for the rest of the season.
And this is where that big what if starts hanging over everything, right?
Yeah.
What if that injury hadn't happened? What if he'd been able to build on that early success with the Springboks?
That's a question a lot of fans still ask. He went on to play for Gloucester in England, eventually came back to the Lions.
But he never quite...
Yeah, he never quite found that same form he had before the injury.
Injuries, they're just a fact of life in a sport as physical as rugby. And as we see with Kriel, they can really change the whole direction of a player's career.
It's like one of those sliding doors moments, isn't it? One event that can totally shift the course of things.
Exactly. And while we can't really, go back and rewrite history, it's fascinating to think about how things might have been different for him if that injury hadn't happened.
It's interesting to think about the Lions back then.
Yeah.
They were playing this really exciting, fast, attacking style of rugby.
Oh, it was a joy to watch. So fearless, so innovative, really pushing the boundaries.
Yeah.
And Kriel, he just thrived in that environment.
Yeah, he did.
A key part of that Lions machine.
He seemed to just, instinctively know where to be and when.
Almost like a sixth sense for the game.
Exactly. He could anticipate the flow.
He had that innate ability.
Which not every player has, right?
Not at all. To read the game, react in the moment. Kriel had it in spades.
And a lot of people thought that would translate perfectly to the Springboks.
Yeah.
But international rugby
Different beast.
is...
The Springboks, they often go for a more structured approach.
Yeah, more physical.
Yeah, imposing. And while Kriel was definitely tough and powerful, his strengths, they might have been better suited to a game plan that gave him a bit more freedom.
So are we saying that his style, while perfect for the Lions, wasn't necessarily the right fit for the Springboks back then?
It's not about right or wrong, really.
Right.
More like different approaches,
Yeah.
different philosophies. The Springboks had their way of playing, and it's not always easy to integrate someone with a different style, however talented.
And let's not forget the competition he was up against for those loose forward positions.
Oh, fierce.
Some of the best in the world.
Pieter-Steph du Toit,
Yeah.
Sia Kolisi, Dwayne Vermeulen. World-class players already established.
Trying to break into that lineup.
Like cracking a vault.
It is. even with the right skills.
You need the timing, the opportunity.
And maybe a bit of luck.
Yeah.
Speaking of timing, that injury in 2017
Oh, yeah.
couldn't have come at a worse time for him.
Talk about a cruel twist of fate. Just as he was starting to find his feet at the international level, showing what he could do on the big stage. And then that injury, it just disrupted everything.
And he never quite got back to that same level.
No.
It really shows you how fragile a rugby career can be,
It does.
even for the most talented athletes.
Yeah.
Before we go any further, I want to remind everyone listening
Yes.
to subscribe to Rugby Obsession for more great content.
Don't miss out.
We've got some exciting episodes coming up.
You won't want to miss them.
Now, focusing back on Kriel, it's important to say, even though his Springbok career, well, it wasn't what some people expected.
Yeah.
He still achieved a lot.
He did, absolutely. 3 Super Rugby finals.
Mm-hmm.
Man of the Match awards, representing his country.
That's an impressive resume.
It is, by any standard. And his impact on the Lions during that golden era?
You can't overstate it.
No. A true warrior, a fan favorite?
Left everything on the field.
He did. And even though his time with the Springboks was cut short, he left a mark.
It's often said a player's legacy, it goes beyond the caps and the trophies.
It's about the impact.
The impact they have on their team, the fans, the sport itself.
And in that sense, Jaco Kriel's legacy.
Yeah.
It's one of passion, dedication, and absolute commitment to the game he loved.
It really embodies those core values of rugby.
Resilience, camaraderie.
The pursuit of excellence.
Yeah.
So while we might wonder what if, it's important to celebrate what he did achieve.
Absolutely. He gave us those moments of brilliance, showcased his talent, inspired young players.
His story reminds us that there are so many ways to measure success in rugby.
It's not always about reaching the top.
It's about the journey, the impact you have along the way,
Yeah.
the mark you leave.
Beautifully put.
Now, as we head towards the end of our deep dive, I'd love to hear from you, our listeners.
Yes.
What are your favorite Jaco Kriel moments? Share your memories and thoughts in the comments section. Back for the last bit of our deep dive here to Jaco Kriel's rugby career. It's amazing to me how, even though his Springbok career was pretty short, he still had, like, a real impact.
Yeah. It really says something about his talent and the way he impressed everyone who saw him play.
He had that, what do they call it? The X factor?
He did.
That blend of power and athleticism and just rugby smarts.
Yeah.
Made him so exciting to watch.
Yeah.
You were saying earlier how his style might have suited a more, like, expansive game plan. Do you think there were any missed opportunities for the Boks, to really use his skills in a different way?
It's always tough to say, looking back, right?
Yeah.
But it is an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Maybe with a few tactical tweaks, Kriel could have been used in a way that, really played to his strength. Imagine him out wide, using that speed and agility to just cause chaos.
That would have been something else. But, I mean, like we said, so many factors involved. The Boks game plan, the competition for spots.
Yeah, and of course that injury.
Yeah, that injury.
It's complicated.
It is.
And sometimes, even with all the talent, things just don't line up perfectly.
But that doesn't, take away from what Kriel did achieve.
Yeah.
Or his impact on the game.
And I think that's what we're left with from this deep dive Kriel story. It reminds us that rugby careers, they're rarely straightforward. There'll be ups and downs, moments of brilliance, setbacks.
It's about the journey, celebrating the unique talent each player brings.
Exactly. And recognizing that, well, success can look a lot of different ways.
Well said. And for those of us who did get to see Jaco Kriel play, we'll always remember that commitment, his determination, and those moments of, well, just magic.
Absolutely. And that's a wrap for this episode of Rugby Obsession. Huge thank you to everyone for listening.
Yeah, thanks for joining us.
Hit that subscribe button to stay tuned for all our upcoming deep dives.
We've got some great ones coming up.
We do, and we can't wait to share them with you. Until next time, keep the passion for rugby alive.
Cheers to that.
And we'll look forward to listening to our next episode.